Hey, welcome to another episode of Behind the Glass. Today we have Mark Imbrock with EDTM, our meter guy, and we're going to get into meters today. What is the importance of having a meter? Why you want to get an assessment done when it comes to glass? If you're an architect, it's super important. We're going to get into that. Of course, we have in-house Gary Clark with Advisory Group Agency. He's worked with hundreds and hundreds of architects, and we're going to get into what he's ran into with architects when it comes to proper glass assessment and how it applies to window film and why it's such an important combination to have done. So welcome, guys, to the podcast today.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think this is a major topic that we've run into. I know Gary's ran into it a lot when we're working with architects. And Mark, just kind of give us a little background when it comes to why is it so important for an architect to have a proper glass assessment done before they spec out any type of window films? What have you seen when it comes to those type of things?
Yeah, it's changed a lot over the years. Obviously, low E coatings continue to evolve and window technologies continue to evolve on a daily basis. Back in the day, it would be very easy to just not randomly, but roughly estimate what the performance of a window was just with some of the limited low E coatings that were available. So if they're approaching it from an energy standpoint, energy savings and building envelope performance, they would use some type of rough calculator to estimate what the performance of those windows were. And then picking a window film to try to tweak that and make the windows more efficient and the building envelope more efficient. It would have been very simple for them just kind of throw an average number on there. But boy, with today's different technologies and different coatings and different variants of performance, you really need to know what's in that window if you're trying to assess where you're at versus where you're going to go. So if you're trying to calculate some type of energy savings or anything along that line, you really have to know what that low E coating is or what the performance of that window is before you start making film options. So that's where our products come in. Our meters can help you assess that and get a good idea of what that understanding or what that performance of that window is.
What do you feel like when you're, working with these architects? What could you kind of recommend to these guys? What could actually go wrong if they don't do this? What are some scenarios that can happen? Maybe based on throwing their specs off, or even a safety issue when it comes to the glass itself. What would be some good advice for these architects?
Sure. So two different things, I guess, what I'd look at. One, if they're doing load calculations for like HVAC and things of that nature, or even trying to calculate peak loading from an energy standpoint from electricity. If they're looking at those things, they could be radically off if they assume a window has a certain performance and it doesn't, or from a loading standpoint, if they assume the window is not a great performer when it might be a better performer than they think. If they're doing load calculations for HVAC, they could end up being radically wrong and miss the target. So that's one of the big standpoints, is just making sure you have a good idea of what you're starting with, so your calculations are more accurate. The other aspect with window film you have to be careful is you really have to know what's in that window, where the low E coatings are, what type of glass you're working with, because if you choose the wrong film and have it installed, you have the potential for glass breakage and a lot of damage to the window itself, which then obviously you're incurring a very high cost. So knowing what's in that window, where the coatings are, becomes very important before you choose what window film, because a certain application you might be speccing, oh, we definitely want to do an interior window film. Well, if the low E coatings aren't where you think they are, that could change that and turn that into an exterior application. And if you wrote a spec for an interior when it really should have been exterior, again, you're going to swing and miss pretty hard on that project. So,
yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I had a project years ago that it was a brand new building. It was a big administration building, and they had added about 2,000 square feet of film on the building. Well, they didn't know when the tenants moved in, they still had a heat problem. And so they called me out, didn't realize there was film, like say, already on the windows. And the windows was extremely hot. Literally, when the blinds were closed, you could be 3 feet away from it, and the temperature was horrendous. And so I got looking at it and I said, you already got film on it. So I actually ran the numbers off the glass and then went to the window film company that actually spec'd the wrong film that put it on the glass, and then ran the numbers, and not good numbers. The window got way, way too hot. And they were, what should we do about this? I said, remove it all. I said, we just put 2,000 square feet of film on this building. I'm like, sorry.
Right.
You know,
somebody should have done their homework before and checked the window and confirmed what was going on.
Yeah. Yep. And that taught me a lot about the importance of meters, the importance of, really specking things out, because they just spent all this money. And once again, the window film company didn't have a meter. They didn't check the glass. And so, I know architects a lot of times are writing these specifications out, but they don't really understand all what goes into this glass, especially the new glass that's coming out, and how it can affect things, as well as trying to retrofit something that they're trying to do. And we'll get into more of that with Gary on working with these architects. But yeah, that was definitely an eye opener, and they were not real happy after spending all that money. So
yeah, that's unfortunate. And yeah, it's measure twice, cut once type of philosophy. Do the homework ahead of time, and yeah, it's going to save you a lot of headaches for sure.
Oh yeah. So speaking of meters, what are some of the ones that, say an architect would, like if they called us at AGA to come look at a project, or some of the things that, say, an architect would spec in to make sure that the glass is properly spec'd if they didn't have the specification on the glass? What are some of the meters that you guys carry that would give them the information that they need to make a good selection for their clients?
Sure. Yeah, our Glass Check Elite obviously is one of our flagship products, and is the most capable and versatile product as far as identifying what's going on inside those windows. So from one side, you don't have to have access to both sides. So if you are up on the 30th floor, you're still okay as long as you have access to the inside. The Glass Check's going to tell you everything about that window from a glass thickness standpoint, airspace, overall thickness of the window, breaking it down as a single pane, double pane, triple pane. Is it laminated glass? If it is, it gives you the makeup of that, the construction of the laminate, including that laminate interlayer thickness. So you've got basically all that information from a construction standpoint, knowing what you have. But then the real benefit of that Elite product is it will tell you where the low E coating is in the window. So you know exactly what surface it is on, which is very critical for film selection. And then beyond that, it breaks that down further and tells you the category of low E, whether it's a hard coat versus a soft coat low E product. If it is a soft coat, it breaks that down further to tell you if it's a triple silver, double silver, or single silver performing low E. And we have reference charts that come with the meter. So if you find out that you put it up there and it is a triple silver low E, in fact, which is a very high performing low E, you know that glass, that window is already going to be performing down around a 0.25 or 0.26 solar heat gain coefficient. So it tells you everything about that. So you know going in, hey, this is the ballpark range of performance of that window. Now let's build from that and say, what is our window film going to do on a window product that already has this solar heat gain coefficient? So not only do you know where the low E is, so you're making sure you don't ever inadvertently put a piece of film on a low E piece of glass, which can be catastrophic because you get that heat buildup in the glass where the film gets hot and kicks it into the glass, and the low E coating kicks it back to the film. You kind of get a little bit of a furnace within that single piece of glass, and can cause some troubles for you. So yeah, the Glass Check Elite is going to tell you the most in a simple measurement. In less than 5 seconds, you have all this information about that window. So,
Mark, that meter has been a godsend to the industry. It's as close to having the spec off the glass as you can possibly be. It's amazing. Just right. Amazing tool.
Yeah. And that's a great point, Gary. There's a lot of times the buildings, they don't have the specs on what the original window was. And if you have that information, then that's great. You can go and model that, plug it into the Windows database, and actually get what the performance of those windows are. But if you don't have those specifications, which as we've learned over time, most of the time you don't have those. So yeah, being able to kind of recreate that specification with the meter, obviously a wonderful tool to have. So yeah, the Glass Check Elite, that's certainly one of the most popular. Our profiler, window energy profiler product is great. It does require that you get to the edge of the window. So if in a commercial setting, a lot of times the windows are not operable. So that might be an obstacle there. But if you do have, either can remove an IG, pop an IG out to measure it. Our profiler goes around the perimeter of the window, and it'll tell you like how much ultraviolet energy is coming through, what the light transmission is. And then one of the key points is it'll actually give you an estimate of the solar heat gain coefficient. So that tool comes in handy for existing windows. Again, if they're operable and you can crank them open or pop them open, you can get it around the profile, around the edge of the window, and it will give you all that information that way as well. So going just a little further gives you actual performance. So that one comes in handy. That's used very heavily in the industry. And then our strengthened glass detector, another one that if you're unsure if the glass has in fact been tempered or heat strengthened, another product that you can slide across the glass and it will indicate if that window is in fact strengthened. So, and with window film applications, if the glass is strengthened, that opens up the full repertoire of window film options, because you don't have to worry about glass breakage. So you can get a lot more aggressive in your film choices with that. So those would be the three primary. We actually have a slew of others, but those would be the three biggest hitters, I think, for an architectural application as it applies to window film for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, a couple of things too. I was thinking about working with schools. It's been a lifesaver for schools because, especially here in Florida, we have hurricane-rated glass. Some have it, some don't. And being able to go check the glass to see what they actually have actually saved the schools a ton of money. Because, and an example, I just had a preparatory school. What happened is the front building was all hurricane laminated glass. Well, they built another addition on the back, but undoubtedly they never added laminated glass. I didn't inspect outright. I caught it. And so it was a critical entrance into that part of the school. But what's really interesting is I've had schools that had the complete buildings with laminated glass, and you would come to them and say, I'm about to save you about $20,000. And they kind of look at you kind of crazy. And they're like, I said, you've already got laminated glass. But then I've heard, and what the sad part about it is these school districts being done, especially in Florida, that's already got laminated glass, but these guys aren't telling them that it's laminated, and they're putting security film over the top of what's already good to use.
Yeah.
And so, as Gary and I are both doing consulting work, honesty and say, hey, this is what you got, and how these meters play a vital role in our honesty to say, here's the meter, this is what it's reading, is critical to saving the school districts a lot of money, or, not just school districts, but private schools that we've worked with. And, but I could write a book of how many projects were done when they didn't need it. Security film on the windows already had laminate, but nobody said anything about it.
Yeah, it allows them to redirect the funding. They can move it to another critical area that, could use to help and not an overkill on the glass, for sure.
And that's led into a lot more work for us, because we've worked with one district and we're saying, this is what you got laminate here. And because of the honesty, they told the next district next to them, like, hey, you need to talk to these guys. And so,
that can't be underestimated, what you just said there. It's just the conversations amongst districts. And when you come in and are very reputable and knowledgeable, that's one of the things that the meters, they give you knowledge. And that's so important, is just knowing and be able to assess the project properly and what's in place now. How do we assess everything we have now? And that is great if you can come in and save them, because they already have, as in the case, anything on the coast now, very high likelihood that they do have laminated hurricane windows in there. And yeah, that glass check is worth its weight in gold when you can walk in and say, hey, you already have hurricane windows. They're already laminated. You're already taken care of. So yeah, it's a great application.
And that's the reason why we had started the advisory group agency, is because we wanted to help take the guesswork out of their projects, with your, architects, interior designers, property management companies. We're the consultants that can give you all the proper information on that, because you can't, rely on a glass guy, they don't know, and then the contractors don't know. So we're kind of, their consultants to help them make good, wise decisions. And that's like today is bringing you in to explain more in detail when it comes to meters. I know, Gary, you've dealt with a lot of architects. What have you, over the years, has there been a regular occurrence that you've seen when it comes to issues, when it comes to glass assessments, when you're dealing with architects? What have you ran into? I know you've conducted a lot of classes, taught architects on different things. What have you noticed a lot of?
Well, I mean, the industry itself is kind of divided into, the way I see it, is new construction versus renovation, or improvement on an aging building where they're trying to bring it up to a certain code. So they do, interior, exterior remodel work. That's where most of the issues come in. On new construction, they obviously have a pretty good handle on the glass specifications and what's going in. But where I see a problem there is a lot of times that information is either not communicated clearly enough to any of the subcontractors that are coming in to do additional work, or it's overlooked by the subcontractors and nobody pays any attention to it. So, but most of my focus has been on renovation, because there's millions and millions of square feet of office buildings, especially retail, that are sitting out there that are not meeting the current energy demands. Especially, we have goals to net zero energy in 2035. There's goals to get to. So there's been an encouragement to go do this. And unfortunately, everybody lumps everything into one pot, and they go, oh, well, we got this double pane glass. It looks pretty normal. We're just going to go pick a high performance film and throw it up there. And unfortunately, that's kind of a bad decision if you don't know what kind of glass you're dealing with. As Mark explained, it's very critical to know if you're going to apply a solar film, or recommend as an architect a solar product to reduce the IR and energy load on the building. It's really critical to know what glass you're dealing with, so there's a compatibility matchup between the film and the actual construction of the glass. And that's where I see the biggest, deficit of where that knowledge is not being, transferred or shared.
Yeah, I could imagine, and I know, of course, architects, they got their hands full just doing all that they're doing on a building.
Yep.
And then window film's such a small part of that. And I guess that's where we kind of come in to help them look at this overall projects when it comes to these type of things. Have you ever had any case studies where you've seen, something that was spec'd out wrong, where, the architect was just, it was way off of what you expected it to be? Have you ran into that?
Of course. And it's not putting blame on anybody. It's really just not understanding the importance of it. Because I think, unfortunately, window film was kind of trivialized a little bit. Like it's just this piece of polyester plastic that's going up on a window, and we can put whatever we want on there. And it's gotten very refined and very technical when it comes to matching up film on glass. So I've seen some really serious issues. One, I'll leave the company name off, but it was a West Coast headquarters building for almost 300,000 square feet of glass and window film. And the fundamental error that was made is that this was single pane clear glass on a 1985 building, and everybody assumed it was standard commercial glass, and they logged it in as 3/8 inch thick clear glass, which for most window film manufacturers is an acceptable thickness to put most films on. However, when you go past that 3/8 inch, it gets a little dicey. It turned out that this was monolithic 5/8 inch clear glass that was very, very large panes, 10 by 12 foot panes of 5/8 inch glass, and they applied a window film to it and had $500,000 worth of glass breakage that occurred in the building, which was, Insurance companies got involved, engineers got involved. Everybody's trying to figure out who's going to pay for what. So this is where that kind of information really comes down and is critical. Other times we see even, and this can occur in new buildings, where they spec a certain type of glass into the building. Everybody understands that. But when they install the glass into the building, they might not necessarily have it flipped the right way. And if you reverse a pane of glass and you anticipate a low E coating to be, say, on surface 2, and it ends up on surface 3, it changes the whole perspective of putting window foam on it. So if you don't do at least some pretty intense spot checking to be sure that the installing contractor got the glass right, you're going to wonder why there's potential issues with glass down your building, where 2, 3, 4 windows might experience excessive heat buildup due to the film being on the low E coated glass, and you get unnecessary glass breakage. So this is where the meters come in to check that, because it's so much easier to flip that glass around before you put the film on. So that's just an example.
Yeah, that's a great application of where a meter on especially that first project you spoke of. Think about the amount of money and time and energy wasted, and one person with 1 meter walking into that could have assessed that, and all that headache would have been gone. It would have never existed. It's like, it's crazy that doesn't happen on every project, but yeah.
Well, what complicated it even more, Mark, was that every single window that fractured, they all started from the bottom, same places. They came up and spread out on this anneal glass, but they all were generated from the same point. So we actually had to bring a company in where these guys suited up with armor, and they started cutting this glass out in sections and suction cups. And the insurance company made them leave the bottom section where the initial break occurred to investigate it. It turned out they had to crane this glass into place, and the blocking that the glass was sitting on compressed over the years, and it rested on some foundation bolts. So there was 2 bolts that the glass was on, and that glass was fine for 20 years until they put film on, which just created enough heat buildup to get down to where those bolts were and fracture that window. So then it's like, whose fault is it? Is it the fact that we didn't know the glass thickness? Was it the glass in the original installation point, not having adequate blocking? The point is with, like you said, with a simple meter check, we can avoid all of that problem and money and headache. And it's just, we have the tools, we need to use them.
They just need to be put to work. Exactly. We had another good application that was on the East Coast. It was just a large home, like 12,000 square foot home. The builder had the windows installed, and he just was suspect. He goes, one of the windows, it didn't look quite right to me. He goes, so he called us. What do I need? We shipped him a glass check. He went through, and sure enough, on one elevation of the home, they had the correct windows. On the other 3 elevations, the east, west, and south facing, which were the most critical, they had the wrong low E coating. And it was, I can't remember, he told me what his budget was on windows, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars of windows, because they were on the coast, had the view of the ocean. And he said, he goes, I'm in a major battle with the window company. I've confirmed that they made a mistake. So, and he had not placed his HVAC units yet. So he ended up resizing. He did new load calculations, figured out, okay, with this lesser performing coating, here is what the load calculations would be. He had to increase the HVAC, and he went through this with the owner and struck a deal with the window company, but they were able to not have to replace all the windows. They went with what they had. He just resized the HVAC. He said, you saved somebody over $500,000 just by having that meter and be able to go through and check what happened. He goes, because we're not going to replace the windows. The building owner agreed, the homeowner agreed to go move forward with the windows as is, but he was able to save the project. Otherwise, he goes, we'd have been in court for years fighting this one out. But because they had the knowledge and what it was, we were able to make an agreement. So yeah, having the tools it changes the whole game. It just really does.
Well, and for architects today, more modern and innovative glass, as I'm sure everyone on this call knows, that the market is trending towards some surface 4 coating. So, I mean, if you have any type of low E coating on the inside surface of the glass and you don't know that, and you don't have a spec, or you're unsure of the spec, and the project is calling out for some solar control or some sort of application, can run into some real serious issues by applying that film over the top of existing low E coating. Number one, you negate the value of that glass because you're covering it up where that needs to work inside that environment. Number two is that now you're adhering something to that surface that once it cures, it's going to require a razor blade to get it off, which could destroy that surface. So I hope architects are understanding that there's a lot of trend towards exterior window film, because that enables you to kind of intercept the IR or that heat load before it gets into a more complex window system and avoid a lot of issues. So that's just something to know too. And if you haven't checked the glass out with the proper meter, you're really not going to understand how to energy model that and how to maximize the amount of load reduction that you can acquire on that building, unless you understand the full modeling of the glass and match up that film application to that type of glass.
Yep, I've had 2 calls just this week already on surface 4 low E coatings, window film applications, calling. They're like, something's wrong with this window. What's going on? What meter do I need to check this out? Because I started on one window and I wrecked it, and it was like, it's a surface 4 low E. They're like, well, that has to be a mistake. I go, no, it's not. It is definitely coming, and it's been on the market for 3 years now. So if you're dealing with any applications that have been built in the last 3 years, you definitely want to pay very close attention to whether or not there is a surface 4 low E coating. Generally, you're going to find them in the central part of the U.S., definitely in the northern part. But I'll tell you, they're selling them everywhere. They're selling them in Texas and Florida. I've got phone calls from window film installers are like, should I have this down here? I was like, well, that's an argument for another day. The fact is, you do have it down there. We work with all the window manufacturers on a daily basis, and we know they're promoting the surface 4 low E coating to meet some Energy Star requirements, and they're selling it maybe not in areas that necessarily need it, but they're selling it because it is their best performing window. So yeah, it's out there and very common. Something architects, again, got to be aware of all the new technologies. If you're dealing with a newer application, it's definitely got to be on your toes.
And then it may be overlooked that someone would assume, well, you could assume that if you're putting in very high performance modern glass with, say, a surface 4 coating, you're naturally not thinking that you're going to need any solar control window film products. However, unfortunately, in our world today, there's a whole lot of call out for clear safety security film that has to be installed or is recommended to be installed on the inside of the glass. So if you're going to try to improve a building for anti-intrusion, to keep the bad guys out, whether it be a school project or retail or what have you, or you're holding for weather conditions, depending on where you're at. It could be hurricane mitigation. It could be earthquake preparedness to hold glass in place. Could be a lot of reasons. And it's an innocent mistake to think about that we're only going to put clear film on there, nothing to worry about. But again, you're negating the value of that glass by covering up that surface, and it's going to be impossible to get that off without damaging the glass. So just to understand, the checks and balances and when and where and how to put window film products on glass. These meters are, there's no replacement for the value that these meters bring.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot to it. And if you're an architect and you're trying to take the guesswork out of it, AGA is here. We're, resource. We got tools, training. you name it, we can help you guys out. Mark here's our in-house consultant when it comes to glass and meters. There's a lot going on. I know Gary and I have talked quite a bit. What happens a lot of times as an architect, understanding the glass is critical, but also in the film, we're notice a lot of these people that are in the window film business trying to install film, they don't have these meters. So they're really not giving you the proper information that you need, which is critical for what you're trying to do for your clients. So once again, we're here to help you guys out when it comes to resources, tools, anything that you guys need, feel free to reach out. We appreciate you being here, Mark. And of course, Gary is our in-house consultant. We handle national projects. And yeah, that was a great podcast today. I think it's probably going to be a really good eye opener to a lot of architects out there, but that's what we're here for, to help you guys out any way we can when it comes to these
any questions,
projects.
just give us a holler.
Yep. Thank you, guys.